views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Let me be your lighthouse so I can show you the way. Let me be your shining light, I'll keep you from drifting away. I'm the one that makes you try when.
This is Patty Hunter of Patty's Page. Welcome to my show. Today on Zoom, I'm interviewing Mike Wilhelm. So, Michael,
Yes.
how are you, sir?
Well, my pulse is still kicking, so I must be all right.
You're still there. Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
You're well and safe?
Sitting up in nourishment.
So, where were you born and raised?
Okay. That goes back a few years. I would say I was born on Wednesday, September the 3rd, 1958.
Oh, happy
in,
birthday.
Well, it's a little behind, but yeah, okay, I'll take it.
Right.
In Mercy Hospital in Toledo, Ohio. I was delivered by the same doctor who delivered my father.
Really?
Yeah.
He must have been way up there.
He was a lot older when I was born than when my dad was born.
Yeah.
But other than that, apparently it turned out okay. Although my dad did have to borrow $50 to get me out of the hospital to bring me home because
I mean,
apparently
they
there was
held
some
you
sort of-
hostage until they said you had to.
Right. It's like the
Oh,
the
really?
story of my life starts out in debt. I started out in life in debt, you know.
I believe it.
Yeah.
We are like that too here, eh?
Yeah. Artists have that affliction, I find.
Yes, RTs.
Because I think finances are a
What did Dad do?
acting science, and
Yeah.
artists tend to be more interpretive,
Mm.
and it doesn't, they don't generally gel real well.
What did Dad do?
He worked at Art Iron in Toledo, Ohio.
Mm.
He also worked in the shipyard there
Ah,
for a while, where he acquired asbestosis in his lungs, and now he has respiratory issues because of that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's 82, so he's making
Dang.
it work for him.
He must have
So
been 20 when you were born.
he was 20, my mom was 20. They were married at 19, both of them, and
That's good.
they've been married the whole time. So I think it comes from a different culture
That's good.
than we have today.
Nowadays, you don't know.
No, it's kind of like, okay, we'll. This is my first wife. This is my training wife, and I'm moving on now to my, permanent wife. Yeah.
Really? In those days, they knew how to stick together
Mm-hmm.
through thick and thin. We're together 31, going on 32 years.
Wow, that's pretty good.
I met him, dated him for a year, was engaged for a year, and now next April will be our 30th,
April what?
April 27th.
Okay, because our anniversary is April 3rd. April was a good month to get married.
Yes, a magical month indeed.
I think so.
When did you move to Fort Wayne, Indiana then?
I was 4 years old. It was 1962, and my sister was born. She was a newborn baby then, and my dad had got laid off at Art Iron, and he was looking for work, and so he started sending out query letters to all the areas in the surrounding area, and Fort Wayne responded by saying that General Electric was hiring.
Good.
And so
Yeah.
So he went to work for GE, and we moved here to Fort Wayne, and this has been my adopted hometown. I don't really remember Toledo all that well.
Do you have siblings?
I have two sisters. Tammy, who was the middle child, she was the one that was newly born when we moved here.
Right.
And then about 3 years later, my youngest sister was born, Lori.
And you're married.
I'm married.
Mhm. With bambinos?
One Bambino, a girl, and her name is Josette.
Josette is a good name.
I like that name. I got that name from a TV show that I loved when I was a child, and I just thought that was the most beautiful name for a girl. And I resisted using that name to name any of my pets throughout my life. I thought, no, I'm keeping this name for my daughter. And when I had a daughter, she got the name Josette.
Mm, that is lovely. Where'd you go to school? Here in Fort Wayne.
I went to school in, well, Queen of Angels was my grade school.
Mhm,
And then I went to Northwood Junior High.
mhm.
And that's really where I think I found my writing, although I didn't know it,
What you write?
because I would start writing things, and people would kind of look at you and go,
You did that.
wow, you wrote that? You did that? And I'm going, yeah, I did.
Brilliant.
Wow. But I never really gave it much credence.
Kingdom of
And-
Spoons. What's that?
Okay,
That's going
I
to.
knew this was coming up.
All right.
um, When I was in junior high, we had to write a story. And I don't know how I got to this, but I came up with this story and I wrote it, and the teacher loved it. And so he read it to the class, and then we started making a series out of it. And it was a fable about the Kingdom of Swoons. And the story, it's a very short little story. It simply says, long, long ago, many years before Once Upon a Time, there existed in a far off land, a far off kingdom called the Kingdom of Swoons, thus called because swoons lived there. Now, swoons were not very big, and they're not very smart. In fact, they're kind of stupid, but they're very loving and they're very gentle creatures. Now, the swoons have a neighboring kingdom called the Kingdom of Kleins, thus called because Kleins live there. Kleins are a little bit bigger than swoons and a little bit smarter, with the IQ of about 1/2. Well, one day, a plague infested the Kingdom of Swoons. And this plague was about 6 feet high, very mean and very nasty. And of course, he did terrible things to the swoons, and the swoons were helpless. So after 2 or 3 hours of tormenting these poor swoons, the plague became bored, and we all know how easily plagues get bored. And so he moved on, leaving the Kingdom of Swoons. Well, a Klein happened to be walking out about that time, and he saw the poor swoons lying wounded and quivering all over their kingdom, and his heart fell out for them. So he put his heart back in, and he loaded up the poor wounded swoons into his red wagon and took them to his kingdom, where they worked diligently day and night to fix all of the swoons so that they were in perfect health. And after that, whenever a swoon would become sick or hurt, they would take them to the Kingdom of Kleins, where the Kleins would work hard and fix them all up. The moral of the story is, Kleins heal all swoons. It's like all that build up for that stupid little punchline, but that was
That was
the,
it all.
yeah.
But that's for kids, isn't it? That's
Well, it was a junior high. It was sort of a parody of just about everything I could think of.
yeah.
It was all to build toward the Time Heals All Wounds parody. But one of the other things that I ran across, which was kind of really, my wife brings this up all the time, was when I was in junior high, again, we were given the assignment to write something about having an activity on the moon, how it would be different than doing it here on Earth. Well, this was one of those elements where I just forgot about it, kind of, you know. And so the day it was due, I'm sitting in my homeroom class thinking, I got to get this paper written in an hour. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And so my first class was study hall. So I ran down to the library and I dug out a copy of Casey at the Bat.
Yeah.
And I rewrote the poem as if it was done in outer space, on the moon, you know. And so in an hour, I rewrote this whole poem, turned it in, got an A+. The teacher read it to the class and read it to previous classes years thereafter because he thought it was the most brilliant thing he'd ever seen a student write. My wife had heard that story when she was in junior high, because she's a few years behind me. She never dreamed that she'd be marrying the guy that wrote that. And she always told that.
Mazel tov.
So I'd been writing, and it never really clicked that that's what I could do. It was just something I did because it was fun.
Hey, it's not really work. It's a fun thing to do from the heart.
Yeah.
And creativity is great to have.
Wonderful. It is. It's a wonderful companion.
So you have you have a recent play called The Dreadful Journal of Phoebe Weems.
Yes. I just wrote that play recently. I've been with All for One since 2003, I think. We were living in California at the time.
Right.
And I went to California, first of all, to get a job because there were no jobs around here at the time. And when I was newly married, my cousin called me up and said, "Hey, I think I can get you a job here in California." Moved to California. And right out of high school, I had actually attended the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I'd never finished it. I just went 1 year, came back, met my wife, we fell in love, and my whole life changed. And so then, I get married, we go back to California, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go back and finish my college education. So I went back to the academy 10 years later and finished what I'd started, gotten my degree out of the American Academy of Dramatic Arts West, and then tried to proceed to get a career going in television or entertainment, movies, whatever I could find. Did a few commercials here and there, but my daughter was born, and I hadn't really accumulated a whole lot of secure job work that way. And so we got to thinking about what we should do. Okay. And we prayed about this one a lot because this was one of those life choices. And my sister had told me that there was a theater company in Fort Wayne that if I moved back, I could probably contact them and might be able to get some work with them.
Which one was that?
Well, I didn't know at the time who it was, but when we finally moved back, I contacted, it was All for One Productions. And I contacted Sharon Henderson, who at the time was the head of the organization, and she met with me, and we had a great interview. Oh my gosh, she's such a sweet lady. And she told me all about her testimony, and she told me all about the beginning of All for One. And I told her my story, and she said, "Well, why don't you audition for I Remember Mama?" And I did, and the rest is history. I've been with them since then. I was in several of their plays. But then there's that writing thing coming up again. And I was reading an article in the Fort Wayne Reader. They were celebrating like the 60th anniversary of the Great Turtle Hunt. And
who had influenced you with that?
Well, I read the article first, and I saw the article, and as I'm reading this, they were trying to write it as if it was like, unsolved mysteries, kind of a mysterious thing. But as I'm reading this story, I'm on the floor. I'm thinking, this man is obsessed with this turtle, and he's taking all of these risks to get this thing because he knows once he gets that golden ring, his whole life is going to be and the man driven is what really influenced me. Somebody should write a movie about this. This is just good stuff. How come nobody has done that? And then I thought, well, maybe you could probably do it on stage. I mean, it would take a little creativity, but somebody should write that. Well, why don't I do that? And so I started writing it, and I was doing some research, and I found that film. It was a 2-hour documentary, and about the turtle hunt, and I absorbed it. I just listened to all the details because the details is what I wanted. I wanted to know what was the dates and who was the ones that and it was a great tool to help me to put together this story. And the story that I saw was a man who was facing a choice. Does he go off and pursue this thing that could possibly be, pay dirt and really a great thing for him, or does he stay with his family? you know, and he tried to balance both. He tried to do both. He tried to have the family and the farm, but at the same time, he was going to take the risks and da da da. And I think we all do that. We all try to find that balance.
Mm.
And if it wasn't really for the relationship between him and his wife, Gail, and Helen, I don't think that it would have survived. One of them would have survived. It was really the two of them working together and coming together. And even though they did kind of part ways during this process, they were still close enough that she could grab him by the ear and say, "Honey, come on."
Enough already.
Yeah, enough.
Drains or lake or whatever, pond, whatever.
He did. He drained the lake. He electrocuted the lake. He threw bombs into the lake. He did everything he could do to get that turtle, and he didn't get it.
Did you?
Now there are reports that people have seen it, so I think it really was there. I really think there was a turtle there.
It's a prehistoric critter.
Maybe, but I think with all the hijinks that he went through, he may have killed it,
Mm.
which is something that I don't like to think about. But at the same time, you know, I mean, he was desperate. So that's what I found. I found the conflict between the man and the golden goose,
Mm.
or the steady goes the way. Which path do I follow? And
Terry Doran did a documentary.
that was the documentary that I watched. And they had it at the library, and fortunately enough, it was on VHS,
Mm.
and I still had a VHS at the time. I thought, oh, I can still watch this, you know. So I was able to sit down, and it was a 2-hour. I mean, it covered a lot of territory about that storyline. It was, you know, I'm surprised the History Channel hasn't picked it up.
Yeah, you should tell them.
Yeah.
I'm friends.
Yeah,
Bob and
see?
I are friends with Terry.
Okay. Well, put a bug in his ear. Say, contact the History Channel,
Yeah. Oh,
because I've seen it. It comes up every once in a while in one of their little, you know, unsolved mysteries or monsters on the loose type of theme song or theme that they'll present. And
I should tell him. I don't think he's aware of this, is he? I don't know. Is he aware of it? I don't know. We'll put the bug in his ear.
yeah, put the bug in his ear.
Mm.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
You've known him.
So
for-
after I wrote that,
Yeah.
and you know, to get back to your original question about Phoebe Weems, I started sending the pieces as I was writing the play to Laura Nichols, who's the artistic director at All for One.
Mhm.
And she loved it, and she gave me great direction. She gave me great criticism, correction, and all this sort of stuff, so that the play played out very well. And then shortly thereafter, I came up with the script for The Dreadful Journal of Phoebe Weems, which actually came about due to the conversations that my wife and I had with our daughter at 3 o'clock in the morning in her bedroom. She was terrified of everything. We didn't know, you know, how do you deal with this? You know, childhood fears are very real to the child, but to us, it's like, this is just silly, and you can't be angry to them to stop being afraid. You know, so how do you deal with this? So I wrote that play up and I sent it to Lauren, and she kind of liked it. She said, it's not ready yet. So we kind of put that on the back burner to simmer for a while. In the meantime, I ran across an old movie called My Man Godfrey. And I was watching that and I thought, you know what? I'll bet I could adapt that to a stage. It wouldn't be that difficult. I mean, everything takes place in the house and soda. So the movie was in public domain at the time. So I thought, well, why not give it a shot? So I started breaking it down.
Mhm.
And when I broke it down, it didn't cohere very well. That's a word. Cohere.
Kind of fell apart.
Yeah, it just kind of fell apart. There were a lot of plot holes. There were a lot of things that didn't make sense. Character motivations were kind of weird.
Yeah.
And the ending, I didn't like the ending at all. I thought the ending was really stupid. So I thought, well, okay, all right. I like the premise. What can we do to fix this? And so I thought, well, what if you brought it into modern day?
Mm.
Because My Man Godfrey is all about the high banking, the high echelon of people, and debutante balls and all that sort of stuff. 30s, you know. And I thought, if we move it to modern day, we're going to change that to reality television with Twitter and Facebook and, you know, cell phones and the whole bit. And so I did. I sat down and I started to lay that out, and it really worked really well. And then the one element that I needed to really carry the story along was an old element that had been sitting in the back of my head for a long time. I grew up in the 70s, and I had seen the televangelists that had the big empires that kind of caved in on them, and things kind of collapsed because of their money grabbing, hungry
Yeah.
type of thing, and that always made me sad, because being a Christian myself, and seeing the faith being abused like that, it just really made me sad to see, okay, what. And so I always thought in the back of my head, there's got to be a story there that we can tell that would bring hope even to people that have fallen like that, but also to the people that have seen those people and understand how God works. So I put that element into Bentley, and I saw that now he's not a banker who went on a drinking binge. He's a fallen minister. He's someone who's hit the skids, who's on just this side of suicide, and he's redeemed by becoming a servant, which is what we're supposed to be in the beginning. And then as a servant, he can see the needs of the people, and he can minister to it that way, rather than getting behind a pulpit and doing whatever it was that he was doing, but to actually serve people. And so that was the element that I put into Bentley, and it went over very well. I was quite surprised.
You did a movie called Healing River.
Healing River was done about 4 years ago, and the story behind that was, when I was in California, you're constantly looking for work, and film students often advertised in the Dramalog magazine back then of films that they were doing. And what they were doing is basically school films and stuff for their films classes. And they would give you film footage of whatever you did with them. And then you put that together and you got a reel. And then you can present that to casting directors of big TV shows and movies and so forth. Well, I met this guy who was in film school. He was doing this film. We did it. It was kind of cute. And that was it. I didn't see him again ever until we moved.
Right.
And that was about 10 years ago. And when you move boxes around. And in one of those boxes was a videotape of this film that I'd done. And I watched it and I thought, whatever happened to Mitch Teenley? I wonder where he was. And I looked him up on Facebook. My gosh, there he was. He had moved to Cincinnati. I got back in touch with him. He told me, he says, I'm filming a movie. Would you like to audition for it? So I auditioned for a movie to this guy that I'd worked for 30 years ago. I hadn't seen him since. He cast me and I got to play the priest in his movie.
What's the plot about?
The plot is about a woman whose son is killed by a druggie who was behind the wheel and crashed into her son and killed him while he was high on. And she is just enraged about the loss of her son and this kid getting away with it and da-da-da-da-da. And the whole film is about her arc of trying to get over her rage and anger by forgiving this kid, and then ultimately loving him. But it takes, it's not just a simple journey. It is a struggle. And she finds out his backstory, recognizes the fact that he wasn't just some reckless, kid. He was a kid that had a lot of problems, and he was trying to cope the best he could.
Something like that.
Right, exactly. And so she actually comes to a point where she's able to help him, and it's a moving story. And when I read it, I thought, ooh, this is actually pretty good. I really like the theme of forgiveness, not being easy, but being necessary to continue on with your life.
And you're part as a pastor?
I'm a priest. I'm a Catholic priest. Yeah. And not being Catholic, it felt a little odd, but I actually grew up Catholic. I was Catholic when I was in grade school, Queen of Angels. But we left the church when I got into junior high and moved into evangelical Christianity. And there's been a lot of things that I learned from the Catholic Church that I apply to what I believe now. But for the most part, though, it was interesting reading the script and seeing that it doesn't matter if this was Catholic or evangelical or whatever. Forgiveness is a very important survival thing. We all need to be able to forgive. And it doesn't come easy, but it's for our own good. I heard somebody say one time, and I thought this was very profound, and I've seen it play over and over again in real life. If you don't forgive for what has happened to you, the very thing that you don't forgive will become a part of you. And I've seen that play out time and time again, because you're still holding on to that transgression or whatever that is, and you're not letting go of it. And so it will just dig its roots into you, and you got to let go of it for your sake as well as the other person.
When it's in root in you, it affects everyone around you too.
It does. It does. It's kind of like a vampire. I mean, you know, you get bitten, and then you become the vampire, and then you bite others, and then they become vampires. It's
Like a domino effect.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I never realized your show was so philosophically geared. I find that very interesting.
So we're getting towards the end of the show, my friend.
That was fast.
Yeah, I know. We're going to. Can you lead into the healing
River?
Yeah.
Healing River. Okay. Actually, Healing River originally was called Over the Rhine, because it takes place in Over the Rhine, which is a district of Cincinnati that is apparently run down now, but at one time it was a quite a fashionable place of town. But a lot of criminal activity takes place in that area now.
Yeah.
Anyway, we filmed it there, and this is the story of a woman who has lost her son to a druggie, and it's about her healing and recovery from that.
I'm looking for my son. Peter, where's Michael? Why can't I see Michael? What's going on?
Ingrid.
Peter, please tell her.
It is the very real intent of the Hamilton County juvenile system to rehabilitate young people, not throw them away.
He murdered my son.
Alec McCortland will be tried as a juvenile.
Look, I'm telling you, he is a runner. He'll be out in about 2 seconds.
What do you think should have happened to Michael's killer?
I think he should be made to regret what he did for the rest of his life.
Don't heal wounds by poking them.
Oh, so denial, that's your solution?
Justice without mercy is revenge. God doesn't want that.
Well, it's what I want! Would you like to die like that?
Yes. God is teaching us forgiveness.
He is the gun that killed Michael.
I don't know how to let go of him.
Neither do I. My rage won't bring Michael back. One visit.
It's time to be the hero.
You know, it's the least you could do
I
to
didn't
make
do it on purpose.
I don't remember anything. It's totally surreal to me.
I wake up every morning to how real it is. A kid drowning in his own guilt.
And he won't let anyone take it away from him, and so I'm praying that you can. God, he's the pill that keeps me alive.
No, I can't let him inside. Don't you get that?
He's already inside. Let him finish what he started.
I am not in the business of saving.
What if you're the only one who can?
I really thought I didn't believe in God anymore. Then you came back. And there's just no way you'd be here without God.
And thank you so much for coming on to my show, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, nice to be had. Anyways, we'll see you next week, people. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Godspeed, my love, until we meet again. You're always in my heart and every dream. Don't let this time apart give in to all our fears. God will keep us close from up above. So until we meet again, Godspeed, my love. God is with us always, for the rest of